All right, folks, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Now, I plan on this being the final video I make about Dr. Kirk Honda and Love is Blind. I don't plan on doing any more. That's not a guarantee I won't do any more. But as of this video, I don't really want to cover this too much more extensively. I think I've made my point overall. It's quite interesting looking at the likes to dislikes, on the videos I've put up, you know. I don't regret anything I've said about Dr. Kirk Honda because the thing is, I know I'm right, and I don't really need anyone else's approval to know that I'm right. I am right about him. He is something of a simp. He is, in my mind, a very good person, a very kind-hearted individual, but also someone who is, quite frankly, a bit weak and someone who displays a lot of the traits of an empath. Now, weak can be relative, but what I mean is he's indecisive, he's mealy-mouthed, he goes back and forth an awful lot. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure, la 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 la. Well, I'll tell you one person who's not weak, and that's H.G. Tudor. H.G. Tudor is very decisive, direct, honest, just straight to the point. And in this video, I'm going to show you a little bit of one of his videos to illustrate the point that I've been making all along when it comes to the dynamic between Jimmy and Chelsea. I don't want to use too much of it because, as a normal, I have emotional empathy, cognitive empathy, I recognize boundaries, and I don't want to use other people's materials excessively unless it is to make a point. I won't use anyone else's videos at all. But if there is a point to be made, if there is a point I want to illustrate, YouTube is a public forum, and what you put on the internet is forever, and it is for public consumption. So under certain circumstances, I will use other people's material if it makes a point that I'm trying to get across. So let's go into H.G. Tudor's video. And the name of this one is The Glue of Relationships. We'll see it here. The glue of relationships: normal, empath, narcissistic, and narcissists. Now, to emphasize the point, what I've been saying in the videos about Dr. Kirk Honda, it is my opinion, yes. But how did I get to that opinion? How did I form that conclusion? Through H.G. Tudor. And I make no apologies for saying this. Dr. Kirk is tunnel visioned. He thinks there's only one type of humanity out there, if I can put it like that. He doesn't recognize what HG recognizes, that there are fundamentally four types of humanity. I'm not sure that's even the right way to put it, but there's four types of people out there. There's the normals, there's the empaths, there's the narcissistic people, and there's narcissists. So I encourage you to go to his original video and to go to his channel in general and check out the entire length of this video. And he explains how relationships work, the dynamics between normals, empaths, narcissistics, and narcissists. But for my purposes, I just want to use a small portion of it. So let's get into it.
Finally, there's my group, the narcissists, or strictly speaking.
And we'll just jump straight in, because as I've said before, Chelsea, to my mind, is a narcissist.
Speaking for me, narcissistic psychopath, and I will be doing separate work distinguishing between narcissists, psychopaths, and narcissistic psychopaths. The narcissist group, I of course divide into lesser, mid-range, greater, and ultra in terms of school, with various sub-schools amongst lesser, mid-range, and greater, and the cadres of victim, somatic, cerebral, and elite. Narcissists have no emotional empathy whatsoever. Some narcissists have cognitive empathy, having learned that. We have no empathic traits, but we can manufacture them, fake them. We have narcissistic traits, which invariably range from moderately high through to extremely high. We are manipulative. Most narcissists are unconsciously and inherently manipulative, not really.
And this is what Chelsea is. He's amongst the 95 to 99% who are subconscious narcissists. Now, also let me emphasize, does this mean that Chelsea is a morally bad person? Well, first of all, if you're asking that question, you have not understood the point that I was trying to get at. And by extension, the point that HG is trying to get at, in my opinion, it's not about morality. It's about whether you fall into the category of normal, empath, narcissistic, or narcissist. Forget about morality. Morality is for school children. Morality is for 5-year-olds, reading out of a storybook. You have to see beyond that. You have to think on a higher level, like H.G. Tudor. You have to recognize reality not as you would wish it to be, but as it is. So the question of Chelsea being a good or bad person is a question for toddlers. Think on a higher level. Think like H.G. Tudor. Then you begin to truly understand. It's not a question of Chelsea's morality. It's a question of what Chelsea is. Not what you want her to be, not what you want Dr. Kirk to be, but what they are. Dr. Kirk is an empath. I'm certain of it. Chelsea is a narcissist. I'm 1,000% certain of it. And Jimmy is a normal.
Realizing that's what they're actually doing. A smaller group of narcissists know full well that they are consciously manipulating people and get off on that fact. There's plenty more to say about those groups, but that's the brief overview to help you. Now, what about the glue that goes on? Particularly vis-a-vis the narcissists interacting with those particular groups. And I've touched upon this in order to help you understand more, particularly in light of the analysis of Johnny Depp being found as narcissistic. Let's start with the normals. Normals will not be ensnared anywhere near as often by a narcissist as an empath. The reason being, normals don't have the addiction to the narcissist.
You hear that? Very important. When you're watching this back, when you're watching back Love is Blind, whether it's Dr. Kirk's analysis or whether you're watching it on Netflix or any other, platform or format or context. Because Jimmy is a normal, he is not emotionally addicted to Chelsea. Bear this in mind. Keep this in the back of your head at all times when you're watching them.
Furthermore, normals don't have an inherent and pathological need for control.
Normals do not need to control people.
They need some control over their lives, of course, but nowhere near to the extent of a narcissist. And therefore, in terms of their interpersonal relationships, they are neither a slave to the addiction nor beholden to the need for control.
They are not a slave to the addiction like an empath is. And what was the other thing he said?
And what they're slave to the addiction nor beholden to the need for control.
Yep, they don't need to control people. This is why Jimmy was behaving the way that he was. You could see from the very beginning, in fact, that Jimmy was somewhat uncomfortable when he came face to face with Chelsea. The normal, being the most balanced type of person that there is on the planet, kind of looked at Chelsea and saw the crazy almost instantly. And this was all going on pretty much at the subconscious level. But because he's not an empath who needs to fix the narcissist, and because he's not a narcissist who needs to control everything and everyone around them, because he's the most balanced type of person that there is, he recognized that he was looking at somebody who was unbalanced. Hopefully that makes sense. You can see it from the very start.
And what this means is that they are generally capable of forming functioning, healthy relationships with people.
Now, let me ask you something. Do you think Chelsea is someone who is capable of forming functional relationships with people? Remember, she's already been divorced. After a 5-year marriage, she couldn't hold on to Jimmy for the length of a month or two to persuade him to go down the aisle with her and marry her. Chelsea is not somebody who is capable of forming healthy, functional relationships the way that she is. But the difference between me and Dr. Kirk is that I recognize that she never will be able to. Whereas Dr. Kirk, as an empath, thinks that she can be fixed, because all empaths delude themselves into thinking that narcissists can be fixed, but they can't. The damage was done at a very young age, and it's irreparable. And like I said before, this is the harsh reality. You have to see reality not for what you want it to be, but for what it is, right? Sometimes it is just black and white. Sometimes it is just that straightforward.
And when a narcissist comes along, they are either too difficult to ensnare or
Yep, definitely the case with Chelsea and Jimmy. Chelsea all the time was trying to control Jimmy. She kind of succeeded in the very, very early stages because he was giving her the benefit of the doubt. You know, being a normal, he has a degree of emotional empathy. But as it went on, as the number and the intensity of the fights increased, Jimmy started to push back more and more and more, to the point at the end he's saying, I can't go down the aisle with you. I won't marry you. In a show where the whole premise is to marry someone, before they even got to the altar, he said, can't do it. Because Jimmy, as a normal, as a balanced person, as the most balanced type of person that there is, you know, he recognizes at some level what Chelsea is. Maybe he doesn't know that she's a narcissist, but he knows that there's something really, really wrong there.
if they do become ensnared, they shortly depart.
Didn't take Jimmy too long, did it?
So, for example, where a normal is love bombed by a narcissist, they will think to themselves, whoa, this woman's far too much with all these text messages and wanting to see me all of the time. This doesn't feel right. She's over the top. I'm out of here.
Could you sum up the dynamic between Jimmy and Chelsea any more perfectly than that? Let me just replay that.
They're wanting to see me all of the time. Whoa, this woman's far too much with all these text messages and wanting to see me all of the time. This doesn't feel right. She's over the top. I'm out of here. There's no addiction creating emotional thinking, drawing them to remain in the interaction, making them believe that this person is their soulmate. Similarly, they have no innate need to control that individual by continuing to interact with them. Some normals do get ensnared, of course. And when they become devalued, that's generally when they always get out. They realize this person's behavior is just downright wrong. They may not realize they're dealing with a narcissist, and therefore they will walk. And therefore, the absence of the need for control and the absence of addiction means that it's the normals who invariably walk away sooner and indeed don't get ensnared at all by narcissists.
Is not exactly what we saw? HG, being the expert on narcissism, absolutely nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. Go to HG's channel, check out his work, you know, educate yourself about narcissists, put your logic defenses on, learn to cross the emotional sea, as he would say, and once you know, you go. Have a good day.